All right, let's talk about AI and hackers. There's a ton of hype, a lot of sci-fi stuff out there, but a brand new report from IBM's X-Force cuts right through the noise to show us what's actually happening. And we're going to break it all down. Let's dive in. So, here's the big question, right? Is AI building some kind of new unstoppable super hacker? The image we all have is this rogue AI in a dark room just inventing terrifying new cyber weapons out of thin air. It's a scary thought for sure. But is that what's really going on? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we first have to tackle what's being called the AI hacker myth. This is that popular, almost movie-like idea of how AI is being used by the bad guys. Exactly. The myth is that these AI models are just dreaming up completely new types of malware, creating these crazy exploits that nobody has ever seen before. And look, it makes for a great Hollywood plot. But the security experts on the front lines, they're telling a very, very different story. So let's pivot to what's really happening. It might be less cinematic, but honestly, it's probably a lot more alarming. The real story here isn't about invention. It's all about acceleration. And this quote from Mark Hughes over at IBM just hits the nail on the head. He says attackers aren't reinventing playbooks. They're speeding them up with AI. Think about that. The criminals are using the same old strategies, the same attacks they've been using for years. The difference, the huge difference, is that AI lets them run those plays at a speed that is just breathtaking. So, a better way to think about AI here is not as some evil genius, but more like a super efficient and very unethical assistant. It's doing all the grunt work of hacking, finding security holes, writing convincing phishing emails, managing the attacks. It's a massive force multiplier, making old tricks way faster and way more effective. And this newfound speed, it's having a huge real-world impact. Let's just look at some of the numbers from that IBM report, because they paint a really stark picture of what we're up against. Okay, first up, this one is just stunning. A 44% jump in attacks on public-facing applications. We're talking about the websites you visit, your email portals, your banking apps, the stuff we all use every single day. AI is helping attackers find and hammer away at weak spots on a scale that we've just never seen before. And it's not just more attacks, it's more attackers. The number of active ransomware groups, the criminals that lock up your files and demand a ransom, has shot up by nearly 50%. The business of hacking, thanks to these tools, is absolutely booming. And here's the really crucial part. How is this happening? 40% of these incidents are just from exploiting known weaknesses in software. These security holes have always been there, but now, with AI's help, attackers are finding and weaponizing them faster than companies can patch them. And this right here might be the single biggest game changer of all. You don't need to be some elite coder anymore to pull off a really sophisticated attack. These AI tools can do all the heavy lifting, which means that even low-skilled actors or small groups with almost no resources can suddenly become a major, major threat. Okay, so we have more attackers, and they're moving way, way faster. That brings us to the new battlefield. Where are they focusing all this energy? Well, they're increasingly turning to something called a supply chain attack. So instead of trying to bash down the heavily fortified front door of a huge corporation, they go looking for an easier way in. They find a weak link, maybe a smaller, less secure company that provides software or a partner they trust, and they use that to sneak inside. And their prime targets are the absolute engines of modern business. We're talking about software deployment systems, the integrations between all our cloud apps like Slack and Salesforce, and the automated workflows, the digital assembly lines that developers use to build and ship code. If you hit these spots, you cause maximum chaos. So that's the landscape right now. But what's around the corner? What happens next? The IBM report also looks ahead to how these attacks are going to evolve. And as you'd expect, it's probably going to get even more sophisticated. Experts predict that attackers will use AI for deep research on their targets, to analyze stolen data and find the most valuable bits, and this is the really worrying part, to adapt and refine their attacks in real time, while they're happening. But even with all these futuristic techniques, the report brings us back to one fundamental truth. AI didn't create this problem. It's just exploiting a problem that already exists. The simple fact that most businesses are already overwhelmed, just struggling to keep up with the thousands of security flaws in the software they depend on. AI is just pouring gasoline on an already raging fire. Which really leaves all of us, from you and me to the biggest companies in the world, with one critical question.
The cyber arms race is on, and the speed of attack is accelerating like never before. And the only thing we have to ask ourselves is, can our defenses possibly keep up?